Episode 6 brought with it a new ultimate quest called Armada Infiltration, where we must board a Photoner Ship and work our way through multiple rooms to destroy its core, all while trying to avoid its alarm systems. As an ultimate quest, there's only one difficulty, and it has a level 85 main and subclass requirement to enter. As for drops, depending on your final ranking, you will see various glare augments, novel units, and even S-grade augments for units. Now, before we can dive into the actual quest walkthrough, there's a few mechanics you need to be aware of. First off, all forms of healing are reduced by 50%, and Megaverse is reduced by 90%. Then, the enemy's HP scales off the number of party members. When solo, their HP will be halved. In a party of 2, their HP is 70% of their total, 90% with a party of 3, and 100% with a full party of 4. Next, until the quest is finished, you cannot go back to the gateway ship, so make sure to stock up on everything before you go in. That being said, when a player dies, they will instead be automatically resurrected after 5 seconds, though if you want, you can still res them sooner with moon atomizers. And speaking of dying, your party will be allowed a total of 15 incapacitations, and if you go beyond that, it ends. Furthermore, your clear rank is dependent on damage taken and number of deaths, though it is independent of others in your party. So at the end, you could come out with an S rank while someone else in your party gets a B rank. And speaking of rank, achieving an S rank will grant the best possible rewards, but requires one to not die at all and take under 10,000 points of damage. And as far as damage taken goes, just about all forms of damage, even self-damage, counts towards this. Even skills such as Alter Ego, weapon potentials, and even S-grade augments. So keep in mind that if you're using a weapon like Genin to keep yourself topped up on PP, you could actually end up lowering your score if you use it too much. That all being said, there are a few forms of damage exempt from this, such as damage done to pets and damage done to Dark Blast forms. Moving on to the quest mechanics, there will be various forms of laser sensors all throughout the ship. Triggering them will not lower your rank, however, it will increase the alert level more and more each time they are triggered, spawning turrets and additional enemies to attack you. Now, these turrets don't even need to be destroyed, but the more things coming your way, the bigger the chance of you taking damage, which will in turn eventually lower your score if you get hit too much. Furthermore, if you set off sensors over 10 times, you will end up spawning more enemies that will end up making the quest take even longer, and they don't contribute to the final drop table either. That all being said, try not to set off the alarm too many times, though that's sometimes easier said than done, as you cannot actually iframe through the lasers, so you need to sometimes just wait and play it safe. So, as we start off, the first room you enter will be your first taste of the lasers. Just jump over the first set, then watch out for these slow-moving vertical lasers sweeping back and forth. Then pass under or over the second horizontal set. At the end, you will fight a few barriles which can erect frontal shields, but they're nothing special. Once they're taken care of, the next section will open up and have 2 El Scudos to fight, along with 2 other smaller enemies. There's nothing else you really need to worry about for this section, but keep in mind the El Scudos will have lots of damage reduction when their wings are closed. Luckily, you can open these back up by applying the blind status from wind-based techs or augments. As we round the corner into the next part, there will be 4 horizontal sets of lasers circling the room from back to front. 2 mobs will spawn in front, and then 2 more will spawn further back shortly after. To make this section much easier, just lure all the enemies to the front by aggroing them with ranged attacks, and then just clean them all up right there. The next section in Zone B5 is rather simple, as it just has 4 Habalsas to fight. Moving on, the next section will have 4 enemies for us to fight, 2 of which will always be Hayudo Azur. And after a short delay, 2 more will spawn and will either be Baril, Luda Sorcerers, or Yuguldradas. And after they're all taken care of, there will be 2 sets of lasers you must pass through that are spinning like fans. Just be patient and wait for an opportunity to pass through, during which time, using a fast-moving PA or tech can make this significantly easier. Once through the second set of fan-like lasers, there will be a bunch of mobs centered around some explosive barrels. Setting a few off will create a chain reaction, clearing all the mobs with very little effort. Then, when that's done, the rest of D4 and C4 will open up, putting 3 sheets of vertically moving lasers in our way, with some bombs sprinkled in around the center. And once you made it through, you will have a few enemies to fight. Now, the easiest way to go about passing through this is to first get into the middle by finding the gap in the first sheet. Then, as soon as you see the gap in the next 2 sheets, use a movement PA or tech to get through it very fast. Also, do note that there's a small gap at the end on the far right. Then, for the last section, you will simply have 4 enemies to fight. Now, if you didn't trigger all the bombs in the previous section, you can actually drag these mobs back to them. And if done properly, you can clear them all out really fast. And if you don't mind tripping one sensor, this can be done much more easily as you won't have to worry about the lasers. After that, you can then move on to Area 2, which will first put you in a somewhat safe zone. However, as soon as you take a few steps into the next room, you will spawn a bunch of mobs. Using a Julius Nifta Mag's Photon Blast or other forms of suction will speed this part up quite a bit. Then, after all of the enemies are taken care of, the barriers on the sides of the room will disappear, opening up the east and west zones that will have teleporters in each, which will lead to one of 6 platforms. The actual teleporters that appear each time are random, but the platform that each is tied to is specific, and there's always 4 in total. To clear each room, you must first remove all enemies by any means necessary, and this will then lower the shield around the switch in the center of the platform that you must interact with. Furthermore, if a party member clears their platform faster than others, they can go and help whoever is still working on their part. The top left platform has a lot of bombs all around the arena. Just set a few off and the chain reaction will clear all the mobs. The middle left platform has 3 sets of vertical lasers sweeping back and forth around the center of the platform, so you can just lure them to one of these safe sides or a corner and just take care of them right there. If you do end up triggering a sensor, taking out the turrets on the side can make things much easier for you, but it's not necessary to clear it. The bottom left platform will have a mobile enemy on the ground, and then a few stationary enemies up on pillars. To get to them, either jump your way up the pillars like stairs, or use a PA or tech that can move you vertically. Next, the top right platform simply has you fight a few mobs inside of a laser fence. The middle right platform is just like the middle left one, as it has 3 sets of vertical lasers sweeping back and forth around the center of the platform. Fighting off to the side or in a corner will make things much easier. Lastly, the bottom right platform has laser turrets around the entire edge of the arena, which are facing inwards, creating a grid layout. They will first emit a yellowish-orange beam for a few seconds before they fire their actual beam, which is red. Just stay in one square at a time, or up in the air until you clear all the mobs. After all 4 switches have been activated, the big door in the middle will open up, leading to a long hallway full of more sensors. Luckily, this looks much worse than it really is. First off, if you have a leaping dodge ring, and are using a class that has a mobility PA or tech that can be spammed without losing height, you can cross this entire section without having to worry about the lasers whatsoever. And for those who have mobility options, but no leaping dodge ring, you can still skip the first half of this with a double jump into that PA or tech. However, keep in mind that if you can't control exactly where you want to land, you may set off the sensors. For everyone else though, it's actually still pretty simple. Start by running in while the diagonal sets of lasers are opening up towards you, then hop over the horizontal laser in front of you. There will then be a big space in the center that is completely safe. So, take a second to adjust to the flow, and then do the exact same thing you just did, but in the opposite order to get out. After that, there's going to be 2 revolving door-like sets of lasers. The first is rotating counterclockwise, so you need to pass through on the right, and the one after that rotates in the opposite way, so you need to move over and pass through on the left. Once you make it to the end of the hallway, 1 of 3 random sets of fall spawn bosses will appear with a bunch of mobs. Just take them out and the next area will open up. And as soon as you load into the 3rd area, you will be placed on a bridge and will be fired upon immediately, so be ready to move right away. As usual, just keep pressing forward while removing all enemies. The turrets or cannons do not need to be destroyed, but doing so can make things much easier for you. Then, as far as laser sensors are concerned, there will be a set of vertical lasers moving in a clockwise formation in the first 2 sections. At the end, there will be a teleporter that will take you to the final boss area, and this is where you might want to coordinate a little bit with your group as to how you want to handle the final boss, as it's also accompanied by a mini-boss that does not need to be killed to clear the mission. Furthermore, killing the mini-boss will just dilute the end drop table with less desired drops. That being said, the mini-boss can be dealt with in a few ways. The first will be to just have one person take aggro of it and keep it away from the rest of the group while they fight the main boss. There is, however, a way to completely avoid fighting it, and that's to run directly south as far as you can go as soon as you load in. This way the mini-boss will not aggro, while the main boss will come to you. However, doing it this way will require you to mainly be using ranged attacks. Getting to the boss itself, Valfondrus is a quadruped spider-like mech with one main core weak spot on its head, or side, and then a few destructible parts around its body and legs. When the bits in the side are destroyed, it will be briefly stunned. However, when all parts are broken, the boss will be down for a few seconds. Outside of that though, the fight is pretty straightforward. Though one thing to consider for this boss is that since damage done to Dark Blast forms does not count towards your end score, Having everyone use their Dark Blast for this boss can sometimes speed things up, and at the same time also lower the chances of an incapacitation or lowering of rank through damage taken. And if all goes well, this boss usually dies right about when the Dark Blast ends or shortly thereafter. And that's just about it for what you may want to know about before jumping into the Armada Infiltration. There's definitely a bunch of other little things you could do to speed certain parts up, but I hope this has given you a good idea of what to expect and how to complete it without much hassle. And with that, take care.